The following is brought to you by Bleacher Report. If you guys want to check out my live post-game reaction show, make sure to have the Bleacher Report app downloaded and ready to fire up right after the game. You'll find me in the Chargers section. Bolt up. Well, kia ora, Bolt fam. It's the director. Chargers fans around the world, NFL fans in the fandom, welcome to our live reaction to the Chargers-Raiders game. Super exciting times we live in as Chargers fans, man. The Bolts would take down the Las Vegas Raiders in their second AFC West matchup of the year, now in just week 2. You know, what's funny is that at the top of the season, matter of fact, all the way back into the offseason, when we got the schedule reveal and we realized that the Chargers would be starting the season in back-to-back-to-back division games, I looked at that, for the most part, as a disadvantage. That is tough. On top of that, the Chargers would have to go to Brazil to play the defending AFC champions. That was a tough thing to start the season with. And then to go from that game to the Raiders and then next to the Broncos in week 3 is probably one of the toughest starts to a season that you can ask for. But now that the Bolts are 2-0 to start the year, they are 2-0 against their division rivals in the AFC West, and they could potentially walk out of week 3 wins into the division. Shows me that this could have been a tremendous advantage. The Chargers took what maybe was a disadvantage and turned it into a huge, huge dub. Because all things considered, even if the Chargers were to go 2-1 in those division games, that is a very, very good head start towards your hopes to making the postseason. The fact that we have a shot at 3-0 is absolutely massive because it creates an opportunity for the Chargers in year 2 of Jim Harbaugh. The door has been swung wide open to take the division from the Chiefs. The Chiefs not only lost to us in week 1, but also yesterday, to the Eagles in week 2. They are at the very bottom of the AFC West. We have 2 wins within the division that automatically places us way higher than if there were just normal, outside the division opponents. And on top of everything, it feels pretty good to have that kind of momentum going into week 3, feeling that undefeated sense of a new identity on the team, sense of a new championship mentality on the team, and the Jim Harbaugh way finally feels like it's fully been enveloped on the squad after what was a tough, we'll say soft retooling or rebuilding of the team last year. Now into year 2, things look like they're running pretty smoothly. You know what I mean? And I don't know, dude. The opportunity is here. That's all I'm saying. Now, do I expect the Chiefs to suck all season? No. I don't even think they suck. I think that the first game versus us, we played a heck of a football game, right? There were some injuries and missing players on their part, but we absolutely took control of that game in Brazil and started the season off strong. They played the Eagles, of course, the defending Super Bowl champs. They got stomped again there. I think as they move into softer games in that season, they will start catching up to the Chargers. But that's why these first 3 games were so important. Because now not only do we have 2 games of a 2-game lead ahead of Kansas City, but they're 2 division matchups, one against them. Now, a lot of people will say, what about the Raiders? And the Broncos, probably the big one in the AFC West. What about the Broncos? Well, yes, that too. That's going to be a big one next week in hopes of taking them down, right? But I think, honestly, the head start that we've given ourselves, the very impressive display of Justin Herbert really propels us to new heights in 2025. Again, we'll take a look at the standings one more time within the divisions. Chargers will be down here in the AFC West. Isn't that not the most beautiful thing you've ever seen? Chargers 2-0, 2 in the conference, 2 in the division, 2-game win streak with the Raiders underneath us, the Broncos underneath them, and the Chiefs at the very bottom of the division. Man, dude, all I can say, Chad, is who's got it better than us? Nobody. Oh, man. Hey, what's going on, everybody in the chat? Immortal Charger fan, daddy. All you late night stayer-uppers. Man, late game. Couldn't believe how many people showed up in my live stream for that one. Let's dissect some of the fun things. So now we know the implications of this game. Right now we know that the Chargers, the head start in the division, all that looks awesome. Let's dissect some of the fun stuff that we actually watched within this game. I think the big story in this one, actually goes to the defense. What a performance by them, despite a rocky start in terms of Khalil Mack and all that. We'll get to that in just a second, but we normally start with the offense, dissect how they did. Let's start with the defense in this one, because my word, what a performance by them. Okay, I think at the very top, the player that everybody's going to start talking about here in the next few weeks, if he continues on this pace, is going to be the sensational Deion Henley, dude. Oh my goodness, is this man a baller in the league? I was just telling everybody in the chat about if he continues on this pace, you are going to view him in the same light as some of the best linebackers in football, right? You look at Fred Warner, you look at Deion Henley, you say, what's the difference? Obviously, there's differences in their game, but in terms of their quality and impact, he has become one of the most important players on this team. Him and Derwin are a nightmare to go up against on defense, and that's kind of become a theme over the last 2 years for the Chargers defense under Jesse Minter, and certain players are really blossoming in this situation. Right? The Chargers just don't give you anything. You have to earn every single yard, every single attempt, every single read against this team, because they will try and make you pay for it. And they did that a lot in this game. Deion Henley, as great as it gets in terms of his tackling, in terms of his coverage, at one point he had that delayed blitz up the middle and sacked Geno Smith, which was beautiful. So the 2 tackles for loss. He got the sack. He got the interception. 2 passes defended. If he forced a fumble and a touchdown, that would have been the holy the holy 5 or 6 in terms of statage. He is maybe a top 3 linebacker in football right now. And it's been very, very cool to see him climb. I'm so excited to see how he shapes out at the end of the season, because he really is special. Tarheeb still, great day for him as well. We saw a couple of huge plays, him in tight coverage, great tackling. I remember one tackle against Ashton Genty. That is why he fits in the Jesse Minter defense. The tackling, superb. Derwin James, as always, the leader of the defense, was everywhere. 2 passes defended. One that went into the hands of Dante Jackson for an interception. We'll get to him in just a second. Derwin James, as always, very impactful. Tony Jefferson, or as the Chargers fandom have come to know him as his Unk, had himself an awesome day. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think the Chargers have a really hard time, demoting him back to the practice squad after the game he had, fresh off the practice squad. If you guys didn't know, he was elevated in this game. So he was on the practice squad as of, I think, yesterday, and he absolutely balled out. He had the interception, 2 passes defended, great tackles once again. Great game by Tony Jefferson. You got to keep him around on the 53 for the rest of the season. Where I would have liked to see a little bit more Tooley. He did have the sack, though. I don't know if it got counted on here, maybe even a half sack. I thought he had the sack in this game. Maybe it was a tackle for loss. I don't know. I think he had an okay game, but we're starting to notice a little bit of help needed at the edge position. We'll talk a little bit more about that, maybe actually right now, considering that, Tooley, Mack, that was the plan going into the season. Of course, one of the bigger headlines you're going to see coming out of this one in terms of yikes, you're holding your breath, hoping things work out, is the Khalil Mack injury. I don't know if you guys saw it, okay, but the injury was very awkward and it looked very, very painful. Khalil Mack on a reach tackle trying to grab, I think it was Trey Tucker, and bring him down. A Chargers defender would tackle at an awkward angle at the very same time, and it bent Khalil Mack's elbow the wrong way. And I think the very best case scenario, you're looking at probably a hyperextended elbow. Worst case scenario, there could be a break in there. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. Okay, I'm the director. So I'm not going to pretend to know exactly what happened. All I'm going to say is it did not look great to the view of the view of me, a fan. Okay. That being said, it might be time for the Chargers to consider going out and getting some help. I'm actually kind of bummed that the Chargers played on Monday night because of the circumstance around Jadeveon Clowney. I don't know if you guys heard that he was signed to the Dallas Cowboys after that game, that victory over the Giants yesterday. That would have probably been a good one out of free agency to look at. Chargers might actually be a consideration to go and trade for somebody, too, if they wanted for this season. I'm sure there's teams like the Dolphins and Bradley Chubb, that might be a good candidate to come in for this year. Of course, Hendrickson's going to be another one Chargers fans pound the table for, which again would be cool, but you're looking at some pretty steep compensation for that one. The only reason I would be against something like that is because the Chargers are going to have a ridiculous amount of cap next season, and I think they'll be able to buy a long-term answer at edge, worst case scenario, in free agency next season. So to trade a first-round pick when you could maybe just go buy one, that's where my head's at with that one, okay? To round out the rest of the defense, Jamari Caldwell got his first sack. Pretty exciting stuff there. Lohi Gilman looked pretty good. He was everywhere on this team. Hand ended up getting a pass deflected as well, right? Or it was the tackle for loss, I think, on that run play. Tier Tart, as always, looks nice and mean. Very, very good day. And then despite going out early, Khalil Mack did get that sack, which he always does versus the Raiders. We're going to eagerly await his return. Hopefully it's something he can come back from later on in the year. It looks pretty bad to me, so we'll have to kind of wait and see there. All right? Chargers time of possession here. Man, that's actually kind of surprising. I guess the defense just played so good. But let's go back up to the offense. Let's dissect a little bit of what we saw from the offense, because I'm going to say if there's any room for improvement right now, it is going to be on the offensive side of the football in a couple of different facets. Justin Herbert is not one of those things, in my opinion. I think Justin Herbert, fantastic outing today. 2 touchdowns. Of course, took the 2 sacks. Also ran a bunch. 9 attempts for 31 yards. This is such a great thing to see if you're a Chargers fan. I know some people are a little worried about this aspect, but you got to remember the offense that Greg Roman is running. He came from Baltimore, of course, Lamar Jackson. And this element of Justin Herbert's game has always been there. We just haven't really utilized it for a couple of different reasons. One, I think in the Brandon Staley era, we saw kind of a stop to the rushing. Maybe that was designed by Brandon Staley and that was their decision. But on top of that, we've seen some injuries to Justin Herbert early in the season. There was that plantar, right, and some ankle injuries or something like that in terms of limiting his mobility. That is not the case this year. So it feels like they are letting Justin Herbert loose, and adding this to his game is going to force opponents to think twice. When playing a certain formation against him, or when thinking about, do we need to add a spy here? And that ultimately is going to help Justin Herbert and the offense in every single week. I don't know what to tell you. The same thing that you see a lot with like Josh Allen, and not quite Lamar Jackson, but Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, those kind of guys that's like, okay, he could take off at any moment. He has the ability to pick up, 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 15 with his legs. That is something that defenses will absolutely take under consideration. So adding that to his game, this is great. This is what you want to see out of a championship caliber, quarterback. You see it everywhere. It feels like almost every quarterback has this ability. Justin Herbert's had it. He's just not been using it. Now he's using it this season, and we're starting to see the repercussions there. We're seeing a lot more first downs, yards on the ground, et cetera, et cetera. So we're talking, close to 300 total yards for Justin Herbert. We'll say 273, right? 273 yards total for Justin Herbert and the 2 touchdowns. QB rating of 122.8. Fantastic day. Justin Herbert, flawless. And before we get to the rushing, let's actually go down to his weapons and dissect a little bit of what we saw down here too. Quentin Johnston, can we firmly say that he's arrived? Right? I know some people said week 1 was too early. Week 2, yes, I'm going to say still too early. But in my mind, some of the craziest things we've seen the last 2 games have been from Quentin Johnston. His game last week versus the Chiefs, the 2 touchdowns, some big plays by him. Like, he's a big reason we won that game. Then in this week 2, that huge 60-yard bomb from Justin Herbert, I think it was up the seam. Like, oh my goodness, has Quentin Johnston become a very firm threat on this receiving core. I honestly, dude, I'm very excited for this breakout campaign to continue. Let's all praise the Quentin Johnston while we can and get in on that action, before he completely takes off and wheels off the ground, takes off into the next level. Keenan Allen, 7 targets, 5 receptions, absolutely beautiful, 61 yards in the touchdown. It feels like he never left. Ladd McConkey, also the 5 targets, or 5 receptions for 48 yards, also absolutely insane. It just feels like the weapons are finally here. And then you sprinkle on a little bit from Trey Harris, Will Dissly. Hampton got a couple of targets as well. It just feels like the Chargers finally have this complete unit of receivers for Justin Herbert to really spread the ball around. I don't know if we've seen this quality of receiver on the team since Phillip Rivers. Is that very fair to say? I think it is. I think this is the best receiving situation that we've had since the Phillip Rivers days. And it really does feel like it's working. That's what made Phillip Rivers so good back in the day. Yeah, he had that big arm and the big playability, and he was absolute magician reading the field. But he had weapons that he relied on everywhere. He was able to spread the ball around. There was that Keenan Allen factor, and of course Malcolm Floyd, Vincent Jackson, all these guys throughout his career that were like the favorites. But he was able to spread the ball around so much that he just racked up yards every week, and it feels like we've arrived to that with Justin Herbert. So not only do we have a great quarterback, but the receivers finally feel like they've arrived as well. Finally, in talks about the running game, and this is probably the only aspect I'm like a little worried about, what's going on, which is really crazy because at the start of the season, we all believed that the Chargers were going to be this run-first team, right? And it could still happen. I would expect it to build at some point. Maybe the quality of opponents hasn't quite let us do that in the first few weeks. Chiefs are hard to run on. Raiders, surprisingly, hard to run on. The Broncos certainly are going to be hard to run on. But then there's that Week 4 game. I think it's the Giants, right? They suck versus the run. You might see it explode that game, gain momentum, and never turn back. But for right now, the run game does not look great. And I'm going to handcuff that with some of the play calling, too. Because there's several times in this game that me and my chat and Chargers fans felt like we should be running the football a lot more. There was some weird play action stuff. There was this jet sweep attempt on 3rd or 4th down. I think it might have been 4th down. All of this stuff doesn't feel true to what we built this offseason. We built this physical, rough, tough as nails, smash mouth football team. And we're just not doing that for some reason. Heck, we even saw at some point in this game, the Chargers execute a flawless tush push. You guys see that? The Chargers, after the interception by Tony Jefferson, would be down inside the 1. And when they lined up, everyone was like, is this the tush push? I think this is the tush push. And you know what? It picked up 2 or 3 yards and gave them room to operate. I don't know if we might have punted it away after that. No, actually, I think it was the end of the quarter there. I don't remember. But either way, we have the ability to be that short yardage team. And we saw plenty of it and evidence of it at the end of the game, too. Najee Harris, 8 carries, 28 yards. Plenty of people will ignore that. But, he finished this game out for us. His runs were very, very physical. And he picked up a lot of his yardage off of his power alone. And that proved to me that we could have maybe been doing that the whole time. We just didn't for some reason. And that's something I hope improves over the next week versus the Broncos. The Broncos, again, very hard to run on, but we're a good running football team, I would say. I know the yards, average could be better, this and that, but using your eyeballs, we have the players to produce yards on the ground and keep the football moving in the right direction and pick up tough, 3rd downs. I want to see more of that next week. I mean, ultimately, you have all the faith in the world in Justin Herbert, so you're not gonna complain about passing it. But I want to see the run game take a jump at some point. I don't know if it takes a jump, next week. I would expect it hopefully to pick up versus the Giants. But if I had one complaint, it's probably that. Other than that, the Chargers, great game. It feels like they were in control pretty much the whole time. Poor Geno Smith. We'll take a quick look at his stats here. 180 yards, 3 interceptions is absolutely wild. He took the 3 sacks as well. Chargers, beautiful day. Beautiful, beautiful day on defense. We held Ashton Genty to 43 yards rushing. I think he had a few yards receiving as well. Only 3 yards receiving, or 1 yard receiving on 3 receptions is absolutely nuts. So congratulations to the Chargers. All in all, this team, outside of a few nitpicky things, mainly the run game stuff and maybe the interior offensive line a little bit, which they've been better than I've expected this season so far, this team feels really complete. From top to bottom, they feel like a good football team. They feel like what we signed up for this offseason. They feel like they're executing and firing on all cylinders. And obviously the win column is going to prove that to you. The Chargers now 2-0 in the AFC West. The Chiefs at 0-2. It's a good time to be a Chargers fan. Chargers fans celebrate this win because it was a big one. And now we're on to the Broncos next week, which would put us in such a crazy situation. Guys, again, I don't want to count my hands, but if the Chargers go out and beat the Broncos, and they start the season 3-0 versus division opponents, that means we would be 2 games ahead of the Broncos, 2 games maybe ahead of the Raiders, got to see where they're playing, and at least 2 games ahead of the Chiefs. That is so crazy. Because to catch the Chargers after these games, if the Chargers do go 3-0, to catch the Chargers if you're in the AFC West is very difficult. I don't got the numbers in front of me. I'm sure somebody in the comment section will find it and say, hey, this is the percentage chance of winning first place in the division if there's an opponent in front of you that's 3-0. I'm imagining it wouldn't be easy. And this is something that we've seen as Chargers fans for the better part of a decade, and the Chiefs. The Chiefs being 3-0, and especially if they beat us, early, it's so tough to catch up. The Chargers are now that team that will be hard to catch up to. Even at 2-0, it's already a great start. 3-0, let's go get those Broncos, man. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining me. This has been The Director. If you like what you saw here, hit us up with a follow on Bleacher Report. We'll catch you guys next time. As always, bolt up, stay frosty, and great win for the Chargers, baby. Let's all bolt up, dude. Celebrate. It's a big one for the team. Let's go.